Another veteran of George W. Bush's administration has backed Hillary Clinton. We'll ask Ambassador James Glassman why she's getting his vote on this edition of Politicking. Welcome to Politicking. I'm Larry King. James Glassman, the former Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy under President George W. Bush, founding director of the George W. Bush Institute, and like many other conservative former national security officials, he's raised many concerns about a Donald Trump presidency and has endorsed Hillary Clinton for president. The ambassador joins me from Washington, D.C. Good to see you, Jim.
Good to see you, Larry.
All right, how do you assess Hillary Clinton as your, quote, by far the superior candidate?
Well, I think that there are some problems with Hillary Clinton. I don't agree with her on everything, but I think she's a much, much better candidate than Donald Trump. She has the temperament to deal with the kind of national security issues that we're going to be facing. I don't really consider Trump a serious person, and I don't think he has the character or the values or the experience to be president. So that's why I made my decision to support Mrs. Clinton as president.
Have you talked to your old boss about it?
I have not at all.
Although it's obvious he may not vote for Hillary, but he is not voting for Trump.
Well, let's put it this way: he didn't come to the convention. I think that's significant, and neither did his father, and certainly many former officials in that administration are either supporting Hillary Clinton or have said that they won't vote for Donald Trump. People like Carlos Gutierrez, who was the Commerce Secretary, or Henry Paulson, who was the Treasury Secretary, several deputy secretaries of state. But I haven't talked to the president, and I don't expect him to weigh in before the election.
How do you people, when you gather together or sign that letter or talk to each other, how do you explain the Trump candidacy? How did he get your party's nomination?
Well, I think that's a great question because there were some good people who were running. I think part of the problem is the way that nominees are selected. So when you look at who voted, it's probably less than half of people who were registered as Republicans. 55 million registered Republicans. I think there may have been 27, 28 million people voted. And the people who vote in the primaries tend to be somewhat more extreme. Now, you have to give them credit for getting out and voting, that's for sure. But I don't think it's representative of the Republican Party in general. I also think it was a very fragmented race, as you know. There were 17 candidates, so they may have played a role. And the other thing is, look, there are a lot of people hurting in this country, and they're looking for many people looking for sort of quick solutions. And Donald Trump he was a fresh face. He had a lot of quick solutions to things. Now we're beginning to see that those solutions, when you were getting close to perhaps even putting them into practice, are not quite what they were cracked up to be.
How do you, Ambassador, assess the bromance between Trump and Putin? Former acting CIA chief Michael Morrell says Trump has been played by Putin.
Well, I don't know whether he's been played by Putin, but I'm somewhat disturbed. I think that our relationship with Russia needs to improve, and I think we need to take a very clear-eyed view of what the Russians are doing. And what Trump has been saying is he admires Putin's style, and okay, I understand that, but he has repeated that so many times you begin to wonder whether it's not just the style but the policy. And on issues such as Ukraine, you see Trump taking a position that's very close to what Putin has taken. So I'm worried about that, but I'm worried in general about his approach to foreign policy. He's talked about softening our support for NATO, for example. I think that would be a big mistake. I don't agree with Hillary Clinton on a number of domestic issues, but on foreign policy, I am much, much closer to where she is than where I'm guessing, anyway, that Donald Trump is. And I think that's true of many Republicans. When you look at it, there really are no significant, maybe one or two, Republicans, former Republican national security officials who are backing Trump. I think that's important to see.
Switching subjects for a moment, the thoughts on Syria. Secretary of State Kerry is trying to reach an agreement with Russia to implement a nationwide cessation of hostilities there. Are you encouraged by any of that?
I am encouraged to some extent. It's a very complicated situation. Like Hillary Clinton, I believe that we should have been much more aggressive in Syria in nipping this problem in the bud many years ago. Now we're faced with a really complicated mess, and we need to get it resolved, because if it continues, things are going to get worse. And it is it's a crisis of humanity. I mean, we are now about to accept our number 10,000 immigrant from Syria, people fleeing that conflict. And I think the United States should do more, quite frankly. You see Canada doing more. You see many other, Germany certainly doing more. And obviously we have to vet people coming into this country. But you've got people who are fleeing a very, very terrible situation. Now, the real answer, of course, is to fix things in Syria. And I would certainly believe that a Hillary Clinton administration would do a better job of that more quickly than a Trump administration.
James Glassman's our guest, and we'll have more right after the break. Trump says Hillary would be a continuation of Obama, but I think she has disagreed with Obama on a lot of that, right?
That is correct, Larry. She disagreed with President Obama right from the start, wanted to take a much stronger position in Syria against the Assad regime, and really wanted to get in there early and do something. Now it's gotten to be much more of a problem than it was in the past. And yes, I think there will be quite a difference between a Clinton administration and an Obama administration when it comes to dealing with Syria and other problems we have in the Middle East.
If she's elected, what will be the most serious international challenge she would face?
Well, I think it's important for us to have a more direct role in the world. I think President Obama has pulled back, and maybe that was a natural consequence of what happened with Iraq. But we need to be much more engaged with the world. This is one of the problems I have with Donald Trump. He seems to want to pull America back into its shell and be much more isolated. So I think there are a number of places around the globe where we need to be more engaged. One of them is Syria. I also think that we need to try to settle the problems that we have with Russia. I mean, those are serious problems, and we need to engage there as well. And then third, I would say Asia. Now, both candidates, unfortunately, are opposed to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which I think, first of all, is an excellent trade deal, but second, is a way for us to get together with a number of very important allies in a way that puts China on notice and tells China, look, you're not going to run Asia the way you want to. So I would say all three of those are important.
Twofold question. Should Hillary hold a news conference? Should Trump release his taxes?
Yes and yes. Absolutely in both cases. I don't see what the problem is for Mrs. Clinton to hold a news conference. And I absolutely think Donald Trump should release his tax returns.
What about your party, Jim? You are a Republican ambassador. You served George W. Bush. If this is a debacle, if Clinton wins major league, what's the future of the party?
Well, let me just say that I voted for a Republican for president in 9 straight elections, and this will be the first time since 1980 that I will not vote for a Republican for president. What's going to happen? Well, I think a lot depends on what kind of beating Donald Trump takes in the election, and I think he's going to lose by quite a bit. The party needs to come back to its senses. I mean, after the Romney loss, which should have been a victory, the party said, well, we're going to take a look. We're going to autopsy this and see what the problem is. And of course, the problem was that there were no appeals to African Americans, to Hispanics. President Bush got 44% of the Hispanic vote in 2004. I think Donald Trump will be lucky to get 20%. And the future of this country is not, all white people like me. So I think that the party has to move in that direction. If it does not, I see the party absolutely splintering. There could be a new party that would form. I also think that those responsible for the Trump debacle, which is not difficult at this point to predict, I really think that they have no role in the party anymore. And they ought to just leave, they ought to get out and make way for a modern Republican Party. So this could be beneficial, the defeat of Trump. I mean, one of the reasons that I'm opposed to Trump is to save the party. The party's not going to be saved if Trump wins. It's going to get worse and worse.
6 presidents, James, have been Secretary of State before elected. Is that a plus?
I thought this was going to be a quiz.
No.
I got Thomas Jefferson. I think it is a plus. I absolutely think it is a plus. Most presidents, certainly in recent years, have had little or no foreign policy experience. And I think it would be a plus. And President Bush had no experience. President Obama had no experience. President Clinton had no experience. And it doesn't mean they can't do it. But I think that having some foreign policy experience is absolutely important. So it's definitely a plus for Mrs. Clinton.
Wonderful talking with you, James. Stay well.
Thank you very much, Larry. Great talking to you.